This is Michael Scott Hollash with the Reform Report, and back by demand is my man Pedge Tattoos. We are going to be covering the yak element of organized crime in New York, which actually is more international. I mean, it's more covering, the Eastern European organized crime element, the Serbians, the Romanians, the Albanians. So I have Pedge with me. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, buddy? I'm good.
Yeah, this is going to be the sinus infection episode. I'm all stuffed up.
That we've been talking about for over a year. That we were talking about it and we were going to do it. We finally, I guess, I'm very flattered. First off, that so many people have asked for me. I'm going to try to explain from the prior interviews how I met Bosko Radonjic, and I guess I'll start with that. In the early '80s, I started hanging out in these Yugoslavian social clubs because it was that back then Yugoslavia. So I started hanging out in these social clubs, and this guy Jovan, he started taking me to some big name clubs where everybody hung out. Who's of gangsters and thugs and.
Right.
So I met Bosko in the Adriatic Club, and I went there and I met him, got introduced. He seemed just like a regular guy to me.
Now, what time period was this?
This was I'm not exactly clear on the date, but I was around 16, so it should have been around 85.
Oh, okay.
So 85, 86.
So this is when he was dealing with Sammy Gravano and Gotti. And
this was right. Yeah, this was like at that time he just took over the Irish mob, the Westies.
Right.
Coonan was in jail, and so it was like at that time, he was just cementing his bones into the organization, and he took over as boss. And I didn't find out until later that he was the boss. I mean, he didn't play off a boss role. He wasn't like a John Gotti type, like demanded respect. He got his respect.
Right.
But, he had a social club in Ridgewood that I guess somebody owed him money. He took a piece of it. So whenever I walked into that social club, because it was in my neighborhood, the hall where the music is, he'd be that corner table. I'd walk in, he'd be just like, hey, come over here. I'd give him, 3 kisses on the cheek. That was a Serbian custom. He'd sit down and have a drink with me. And I just started to meet more and more people. Like I told you in prior interviews, it's a blessing and a curse. That I got to meet so many people, and then, I got to meet the wrong people as well.
Right.
Bosko was a character in himself. I told you about the last incident where some Muslims came in, I don't know if they were Muslim Montenegrins or Bosnian Muslims. They came in, they had a beef. I happened to be just like at the front of the club, and I started to walk out. It's like, everybody's ducking, and Bosko came running out after these guys. These guys tried to jump in the caddy, and Bosko was like, pop, 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 pop.
Damn.
That's like my first incidence of him being fucking like straight up cold blooded. But then right after that, he was just like, hey, like he just did that, like pop these 2 guys or pop that 1 guy, and he just was like turned around and be like, hey kid, get the hell out of here before the cops come. Like really calm, like nothing. He was when he first came to the United States and everything, he was making his bones. He was an anti-Yugoslav, okay? So I don't know how he felt about being called a yak, because the yaks are a name given by the FBI and the CIA. It was not a name that all Serbs went around and said, hey, we're part of the yaks, because it's
Right.
Yugoslavian, Albanian, Croatian, and Serbian. And, I don't want to jump too quick into the future, but the yaks were being formed. Americans, people in the area, they call us Yugos. Like I said, the feds were calling us yaks. That was their official name.
Right, all-encompassing of the Eastern European element.
Right. And like I said, I got to meet Radovan Karadzic through Bosko. Like
Amazing.
Took me to the U.S. Embassy and was just like, called me up and was just like, hey, what are you doing? Because he knows I'm a big patriot and a nationalist. I met him up there,
Unbelievable.
And, he brought me in, and dude, in 5 minutes down the stairs, Radovan Karadzic. So like that was around 91, right before he fled.
Right.
I think it was 92, but it could have been like
And for those of you who don't know, Radovan was the president. What would it be? The Srpska Republic?
Yeah, the Srpska Republic. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I took a picture with him. I tried to look through my box of pictures, but moving from New York to Jersey, we had that huge flood. Sandy came in, and we got blasted. I lost a lot of pictures, a lot of books that I had that was given to me. Most of the memories are in my head. I'm trying to, for your viewers, paint picture. It was a time, the late 80s and the early 90s. Yeah, the mafia was the mafia.
And for our listeners who haven't heard my previous interviews with Pedge, I definitely recommend you go back and listen to those. Pedge has been on the channel now a few times, and just a quick, just to kind of get you guys up to date. Pedge was an associate of the Gambino family and also associated with associates of the Bonanno crime family in the Ridgewood, Glendale area.
Right.
So, just so you guys know. So go.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
associate,
Pedge.
Yeah, so I like to get that out there. Former associate. We're all
Right.
Absolutely. Either everybody's either in WITSEC jail or
right.
their time got out. It is what it is. I just that part of my life is done.
Absolutely.
I sit back and I say, how did I juggle this lifestyle? Like, how did I juggle 1 minute being in Jersey with like the Montenegrin Serbs, like the gangs and whatever, and I end up in an Italian coffee place like at 3 a.m. playing cards with Gambinos. My loyalties were really at sometimes judged, and I was put on the spot, like which way do I go? So like that yak thing never really existed to me. Like, I've met some big time Albanian gangs. Like, I'm going to give a shout out to the Albanian Boys Incorporated. Now, this is the original Albanian Boys Incorporated during the late 80s. Those were the former Yugoslavs that just, hey, we're going to niche out and call ourselves ABI. These guys were like not paying homage to the Italians, not kicking back to the Italians. They were doing their own heists, taking pickup trucks.
Would this be Alex Rudai?
This is before the Alex Rudai,
Okay.
Because they took over the Bronx. They took over parts of Astoria. So they had the Bronx on lockdown. It was like they were, their dads were working as supers. So then, they were in all these bad neighborhoods, and they would just intimidate the Hispanics and the blacks, and they would just take shit over. You know what I mean? It is what it is, but they took it over. So I got to give props where props is due. And there was the Croatians in Astoria. There was a bunch of guys. I'm not going to mention by name because they're still active. They respected me, even though I was, I said I'm Serbian, Romanian. I never said I was Yugoslav. That was one thing that I just couldn't spit out of my mouth. I had never followed that Tito doctrine, that fucking communist doctrine. I was like, brotherhood and unity, that's bullshit. I don't want to get into, politics. It is what it is, but I basically always said I was Serbian Romanian. I never shit on my Romanian side, on my mom's side. I speak better Romanian than I do Serbian because my dad wasn't in the picture, so my mom spoke to me more Romanian. But, getting back to Bosko, seeing him and then, going by, the old, Hell's Kitchen haunts and meeting him in Irish pubs. And then there was this place called Panarella. It was in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. And that was the go-to place for anybody that was Yugoslavian, Romanian, predominantly former Yugoslavs, okay?
Right.
But the gist of the people that were in there were my majority Serbian. It was majority Serbian. And that's where the American Pink Panther and the jewelry heists and all of that big shit started going on. I met, in passing, maybe he won't remember me, but I met him and I know his face, Pavle Punch Stanimirovic. All I can say is this. This kid and his crew, okay, he's 3 years younger than me. This kid and his crew in the 90s, they did so many heists that it made the Lufthansa heist look like a gumball machine. One job, he got inside information. He was supposed to go rob a big safe in the Diamond District or whatever, and he went in, and there was cash in there, $16 million in cash. He left the $16 million in cash behind and only took the $3 to $4 million in jewels and diamonds and loose jewels. And he almost got whacked for that. Like, he literally got thrown in the trunk, got taken to Jersey, was held hostage like in the basement, beaten. like this is just from me hearing stories in the street. I give props to props is dude. This guy he's got a book out called Stealing Manhattan. Dude, this motherfucker stole Manhattan 10 times over. And like I said, it made the Lufthansa heist like a gumball machine. It was in the 70s one of the biggest heists. But when, Punch came on the fucking scene, and the only reason he came on the scene was because his dad, Vojislav, was just a master at, thieving, meaning like stealing art, jewelry, like.
So they were like a master, like safe crackers, locksmiths, stuff like that.
Yes. And there's a thing that your viewers could look up. It's called the Vizcaya heist. It was a place in Miami that had all this artwork and jewels, and like it was on display like a museum. And Vojislav, Pavle's dad, went over there with two other dudes, just two Serbian dudes, and they robbed this place. The FBI ended up coming to their house and finding most of the stolen artwork on the walls. Like,
Jesus.
Rembrandt's, Picasso's,
right.
like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, Pavle wanted to impress his dad, so as he grew up, he became this master thief. They called him Punch because he could punch into a goddamn safe in 5 to 10 minutes. There's not a safe he couldn't break or crack open. This guy and his gang were like, they were the reason the Pink Panthers in Europe came to play. And to this day, they asked him about the Kardashian heist in Paris, and he basically just says, yeah, it was probably guys that I've dealt with or in my crew or the new founding members of the Pink Panthers. He goes straight up. He goes, how easy can you just get in and fucking steal all this jewelry and, and just walk away from it? And the Pink Panthers, I got to give credit again where credit is due. They are by far the biggest jewel thief and stolen artwork and all of that shit. Dude, they did like so far it's like $300 to $400 million in heists. And they still operate. Some guys have been caught. They're not ratting.
Makes it a little bit more complex to investigate them because they're kind of international. They're bouncing from country to country and targeting.
They're all over. The last I heard, they did a big fucking heist in Cannes and Monaco. They did shit in Switzerland. I mean, and like I said, they're so well organized because they're former paramilitary. They're former, Army trained.
So they know how to scout out or, scout things out.
You know what it is? There may be, listen to me, the predominant 99% of this Pink Panther gang is Serbian. And Serbian meaning Serbian from Croatia, Serbian from Bosnia, Serbian from Montenegro, Serbian from Kosovo, Serbian from Serbia. Right. There may be a couple of stragglers that are, a little Croatian or a little, Muslim Montenegrin or whatever, Albanian. Right. But with the wars and whatnot, they kind of weeded these guys out. They just, it's just like, it's our gang. It's like what we're going to do. When I went to Bosnia a few times in the 90s, and I needed Bosko's help to, get my ass into Bosnia, because he was affiliated with Radovan Karadzic and paramilitary groups, and I used to go to his. He used to have this place called Palisades in Zlatibor, which is right in Novi Sad, right on the border of Bosnia. So I used to go and meet him there, or he had a nightclub in Belgrade called Lotos. So I'd either meet him, either or, wherever he was, I would know who to call. And, I would hop on a bus or, hop on a, army convoy, and they would take me from, area to area. And I got to, in these clubs, going back home and on my stints, on my little family journeys and whatever, I got to meet guys that I later on found out to be part of the Pink Panther group. They never brazenly wear like Pink Panther chains or shirts or, what I'm saying? They're not, you could see the presence on them. You could see, you could tell an ex-military guy. You could tell who's a thief. You could tell who's a criminal by, Europeans have this walk about them.
Right.
You could just
Bravado.
tell by the way the guy's walking. It's not like an Italian thing. The Italians, they got this, everybody in New York can be considered a gangster because everybody acts the same.
Right, but it's more of like a New York thing. Right.
It's like exactly just like Philly too. Guys are talking, hey, whatever, go fuck yourself.
Right.
It's the same thing. You really can't tell unless you see them walking out of a social club. In Serbia, who's a hard worker and goes to work every day 9 to 5 versus who's not. And it's not because they're dressed in tracksuits or whatever. No, they just have this walk about them. And you know, and I have that walk about me. Maybe it's instilled in me. I don't know. So I got to meet these guys, and I gave you a couple of pictures where it was at Bosco's club. One of those guys right there, they were one of the main members of the gang. And it's like you don't talk about it, and like when you're introduced, you don't sit there and, hey, so I heard you guys.
Oh, of course not. Right.
You don't do that. It's just like that's like a no. Like,
well, it's the same thing with the
Italians,
Italians. I mean, so there's a way that you obviously conduct yourself, carry yourself, approach.
Well, the Italians,
right.
Once you get vouched for, and the guy's talking and you talk, they joke about shit. Like, remember that guy when I popped him in the back of the head with the ice pick? Oh, like
right.
Stealing the line from Richard Pryor. That's how the Italians are. But the Serbs, they don't do that shit. They just they don't sit there to brag at the fucking table unless they're drinking and they're amongst close people in their circle. Will they ever say shit? Like, I've sat with Bosco many times and I've never heard him brag about, I shot this guy, I shot that guy, I did this, I did that. But he will, when he gets enough booze in him, he'd be like, oh my God, those times when I had like fucking 45 mil in front of me. But like I said, I was blessed and cursed at the same time. I've met so many people. It's like, and I'm just getting ahead of myself because I'm trying to touch all bases. But I don't mean to sound like I'm shitting on the Italians and I'm shitting on whatever.
And it's not that. It's the fact that just like going back to the early time of Cosa Nostra in North America, there was multi-ethnic groups. Like we've talked about before.
Prior to Lucky Luciano, it was Jews from all over Europe, Polish Jews, right. Russian Jews, Hungarian Jews, and they were the nastiest killers and dopers and fucking,
right. And also the smart accounting entities. Right. I mean, so when you 100%. Have, you have from Meyer Lansky, who was essentially an accountant, and his brother Jake, and then you have obviously you have muscle guys like Bugsy Siegel, and out west you had Mickey Cohen.
Of course.
And then even with Murder Incorporated, most of the heavy hitters in Murder Incorporated were all Jews.
I mean, it is what it is. I just don't want to step on anybody's toes. And, like I said, I got enough material that if I still want to write a book, which I'm still looking to do, I still got to tread water lightly. I mean, statute of limitations on certain shit is done. I got nothing to worry about. Yeah, I boosted cars. Yeah, I slung dope. You know what I mean? Like, there's shit that I've done, and I could talk about it all day long, like the ins and outs, and I had connections in DMV, and I had this, and I had that. I could do this all day long, but to me, it's just going to label me and pigeonhole me, as just like, okay, ex-associate, and I'm going to keep rambling about this shit. I can't. I wanted to do justice with this last interview, because we've been saying for over a year now, Mike, that
absolutely.
We're gonna do this about,
right. And then we end up doing a different segment,
Right. Do I really want to talk about this anymore? No, because I'm coming out with a new show. I'm doing my own podcast. It's going to be me and my son. It's going to be called the Mood Lounge Show, and it's going to be just us bouncing off each other, and it's going to show a different side of me. So, I want to stray away from this mob thing. And
well, obviously, as you get your channel up and running, I'll be promoting it on here.
Of course, I appreciate that. But it's not going to be mob oriented, so I don't want people expecting me to tell stories. Getting back to what we were talking about, meeting these people in Panarella, I met so many different groups of people. I got to meet the Jersey faction of the Serbian mafia. I met this guy, Dragan Karatist. They called him that because he was a fucking third dan in whatever, Taekwondo or karate, whatever. This one friend of Dragon's, he had a trucking business or some shit. He got caught trafficking dope. He ended up getting, I don't know how many kilos he got caught with, but, he didn't give anybody up. He didn't give up the crew. He didn't give up, who his partners were. No, he just, bang, he's like, all right, you caught me with 20 keys. Give me my fucking time. He's still doing time. And like I said, blessing and a curse. I've rubbed elbows with so many people. Some have reached out through your program when we did the Serbian history thing. I just, heard this and this, and how you been? I've lost contact with you for 12 years. And
that's amazing.
I've touched base with a lot of people, and I've met
that right there makes it all worth it to me. You know, I'm
Yeah,
educating my subscription base, educating myself
yeah,
as well, because obviously
yeah,
I'm learning.
right.
But for you to be able to link up with some, people that you
Yeah.
haven't spoken to in
I
quite a
mean, don't get
while,
me wrong. Look, there's people that tell me, hey, people talking shit about you in New York, and I'm like, well, my mom always had this saying, like, for a good horse, when he, gallops, you're gonna pick up that dust. They're gonna talk about that horse, but for a nag that drags its hooves, they're not gonna talk about it. So, dude, I'm that stallion. I don't give a shit. Like, they could talk about me till they turn purple. I'm doing my job correct.
right?
If you're still hating on me, you got to be hating on me for a reason. Why are you hating on me? I'm broke. I'm penniless. I'm not, dude. I'm not these, like, I'm not Lansky,
Well,
hidden
and
treasure or some shit.
you're not competing with them in
I'm not.
anything. You're out of that life, and you never sat down with the government and spit names
No.
out of your
And
mouth.
I've been questioned, like, from the prior interviews. I've been
Right,
questioned by the
right,
feds. Murders, this, that. They came from asking me, and I had to play stupid, and then they show black and whites, and it's me shaking hands with this dude, kissing him on the cheek, and I'm all like, I'm fucked. you know. But it is what it is. If I had to do time, I would do it. I'm not gonna fucking sit there and rat. Now
mm,
I got a kid. Now if somebody decides to come out of a hole somewhere after 23, 26 years and try to bury me for no reason, just because they lighten their sentence, well, fuck you. I'm gonna bury you and everybody else. I don't give a shit now. Like,
right.
because I got a kid, I got a family. I got a
Well,
life.
and you're
This
out
is
of that
not.
life. It's not like
I'm
you're
out.
still in the
I'm
life and
completely.
feeding information. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
different.
and I'm out of that life. Yes, I still talk to former associates and this and that, but it's just because we did business. We had a good rapport, and some of them, like Frankie, I still talk to him. I'm not gonna sit there and say I don't. I still talk to him. It's like we had a good rapport. I mean, it is
Right.
what it is. It's like I can't sit here and like burn bridges. To get back to where credit is due, there was a guy early 2000. He was the fucking credit card king. All right. His name is Stefan. This guy did IDs, passports. This guy was a genius, man. He knew how to put that strip. You know what I'm saying? Like
Okay, so
in the
you could
fucking
make
ID.
duplicate
Yeah, this guy
yeah.
could do anything. So this guy started doing credit cards. Started programming the writer strips on the back. He'd have a reader writer and he put it in there. Whatever he did, he did. He had a clique of 13 to 18 guys running in his crew. Um, in New York, I don't know how much they made in New York, but the word on the street is like close to like 8 million.
Wow.
So he started buying a printing company. He started doing it. Or he started buying buildings. Real estate. He goes out to Vegas and he goes to bang out Vegas, and he banged out Vegas. I don't know, in a few months for like 11 mil. Like, he just had a crew of dudes running around and just, he'd give him 12, 15 cards, 12, 15 IDs, and he would just,
So
dude,
what
they
would
just go
what would they
casino.
do? Would they just run up a card to a certain amount, discard of that one, move
Yeah,
to a
what
different
happened was,
card?
listen, I don't know how he got his information. That's like all inside stuff. I do
Right.
not know. But he would
Absolutely.
give you a fucking, dude, he would give you a list for each ID, and he'd be like, this is your mother's maiden name, this is the last 4 digits of your social, this is your address, this is your phone number. And you'd have to memorize this shit, and you do whatever. And, I was offered to come out and run one of his crews, because there were a lot of Serbians in that crew.
Right.
So he offered me to come out there and run that crew, and I just denied it. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. At the time, my son was in my ex-wife's belly, so that was
Right.
kind of like the most, like, I could make a lot of money. I could also get caught. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
those are
Like,
some serious charges right there. You
right,
know,
right. So I mean,
capital fraud.
yeah. What ended up happening with him? He was making money. He was doing this shit. He started selling the program to people like in Europe, and and this program was like all over the United States now. It's like the main program, how to like program the cards, how to, like, you'd buy a gift card in the store and you'd program that little magnetic strip on the back, and it would look like a credit card, and you would just go and swipe it, and he would tell you, like, you had 4,500. You could do this much, that much. But what he was doing in the casinos was he would be pulling cash off like you're gambling. So first you try 2,500. The limit's 10. You try 2,500. You go in. You do what you got to do. You come back out. This is what he was explaining to me.
Right.
And After sitting there and doing that, you go back again, pull out another, whatever, $5,000 this time, and then sometimes you get the phone call like, hey, the credit card company wants to talk,
Right.
and he goes, you gotta just be a good bullshit artist, and you gotta bluff your way through it, and, do what you need to do. One of the guys that was in his crew decided to, shoot off an offspring and go to Reno. He went to Reno and started banging out. He banged out about $6 million, I think, with his crew, which put Stefan in a really bad situation. The feds were really looking on him. The feds pinched him. It was, I'm gonna say, 2004 born, 2006, 2007, maybe 2008, but I think more around 2006. And they pinched him, and he was looking at some crazy time, and he didn't rat on anybody. He just basically, like, they gave him the information. This guy, George A, whatever, he was the one that was like doing all the cards in Reno, and he was just like, fuck that guy. He was part of my crew, and he dropped him. He didn't give a shit. He goes, gave him the program, and he wasn't supposed to do this, and he ran with it. He ended up getting a job. The feds gave him a deal. They said, look, we'll give you a green card. We won't deport you. You could stay, but you work for us. We'll pay you $125,000, $150,000, and
Right.
it is what it is. And from his original crew, there was a guy named Amadeo. He's, sadly, he's gone. He just died about a year ago. And I grew up with him in the neighborhood, and we were running around with the Italians banging heads with them. But Amadeo just went his way and started becoming, like he worked for Stefan. And, once Stefan went to Vegas, he was the New York branch of doing the credit cards. He got pinched twice. The first time he got pinched, they went to the safe deposit box. That guy had close to like $750,000 in cash in the safe deposit box, wearing a $15,000 Breitling encased in diamonds. This guy went to MDC. He did whatever time he did. He came out. He said he wasn't going to do it again. This time he got smart, got a better crew. Again, same fucking shit. We don't know how much he funneled into Romania, but he got remarried in the process, had a daughter. But that guy was banging with a hammer. He was making millions. You know what I mean? And I want to give the people their due credit. I mean, yes, the Albanians were, forming different crews in the Bronx and Staten Island and Brooklyn and whatever. They were more affiliated with the Italians, but they were off branches and they were doing their own thing and, making their bones. Right. I don't know those people, because after the invasion of Kosovo, I kind of disconnected from the Albanians. Just like I said, I never was a Yugoslav. I didn't like when the fucking Italians, like, Paulie Ragusa used to bust my balls and hey, fucking Yugo. I didn't like that, like, I'm not a fucking Yugo, like, and it is what it is. I mean, I dealt with people who I had to deal with.
Well, it'd be like you calling him. It'd be like you calling him a Spaniard.
Yeah, I mean, look, dude, that's not uncalled for. But Paulie was Paulie. Like I said, the Eastern Europeans were on the fucking map.
And to their credit, just like you pointed out earlier in the interview, Alex Rudai's crew was the same way with the Italians. They didn't give a shit, and they were doing whatever they wanted to do.
They stripped the guy on Arthur Avenue.
It was actually a blood Gambino. I think it was Joe Gambino. I think.
They literally, they took over Arthur Avenue, because I mean, most of Arthur Avenue is all Albanian clubs and whatever, but the Italian stake in that avenue, it was Italian at one time. 70s was all Italians.
Right.
But Rudai was just ruthless. He felt like, he went into Rouse and just goes, give me John Gotti's table, and they were like, no, you can't have it. He just walk in the fucking back and take it. He was a cocky fuck. He didn't give a shit. That was probably his demise. He wanted to be the next John Gotti. Well, look what happened to John Gotti. Talk down on everybody. Your demise is going to be your own guy. There's no honor amongst thieves. There's no camaraderie.
Nope.
It's every man for himself. Now you got to make the money. You got to be the runner. You got to be the associate. You got to kick up to the guy, the head of your crew. You kick up to the head of your crew. That guy kicks up to the captain. They have a quota. It's like a fucking ticket quota with the cops. You got to make that money in the beginning of the month and the end of the month. If you're fucking shy, you get beatings. You get fucking ostracized. You can end up getting whacked. Like with this guy Punch, would get a job. Like, hey, the mob would know that this and this safe was here and here. He'd go in there, break in the fucking safe, course he'd break off a piece and give it off. But he kept the bulk of the money. It's not like he was like, oh, I got to give it to this guy. And that's what was different with the Yaks or the Serbian Mafia and all of that. Whoever's idea it was, like whoever's idea for a heist or whatever, you'd kick that guy the money. You know, you'd give him a nice chunk, and everybody would like whatever you did and you deserved, you'd get. You know what I'm saying? That's why the Pink Panthers is still active to this day.
Well, and that's the thing. You treat your people right, whoever is actually physically involved, and take care of them all, then they're gonna stay around.
How they have the Italian Mafia, okay? A little jealousy or a little slight look the wrong way, this guy's gonna get miffed. The next conversation is, I don't like this guy, get rid of him. You know, that's exactly how the Mafia works. And don't think that the Eastern Europeans, the Serbians, the Romanians, the Albanians, they don't do the same shit. Because it's like, if you're up and coming and you're not fucking showing love and you're not fucking being respectful and all of that, same shit. It's an ego thing. It's a machismo. It's a, you know, and the Italians know that better than anybody. You know,
right.
They do that blood feud thing. You know, the Albanians, same shit. You know, it's like, and then if you go deeper into Serbia, we do the same fucking shit too. It's like, it's funny. It's like what we do here in America as Serbians, it gets back. That's how closely knit we are. Same shit with the Italians. Same shit with everybody. But a lot of people with the Italians, they're disconnected through the generations with their family. With the Serbians, unless you're a second of, like my son he's first generation born here, you know? Right. So my son neither speaks it, and he knows his culture, but he don't know how stupid our people could be. Like, you know, they're very arrogant, they're sarcastic, they're this, they're that. But they're made for this life. Either you're a worker or you're some kind of bamboozler, or, you know, like you're some kind of a, you know, criminal, you know, like aspect to it. Even in, like, half my family is either army, military, police. They're crooked there and that shit too. They're taking bribes. They're doing this. They're doing that. It's just that post-communist era mentality. You know, it's crazy. But one quick story. There was a guy, because everybody talks about, oh, this guy made money. This guy made money. There was this guy. I'm not going to say his name. He ran away to Romania, but he was from Serbia. He was a Romanian from Serbia. Okay. This guy had a knitting mill. He was knitting sweaters, doing this, whatever. He got the idea. I don't know how. This just goes to show you the ingenuity of our people. He made a printing press for money. And this was prior to the strip and all of that shit. Right, this guy banged out millions of fake hundreds and 20s and 50s. How he did it, I don't know. He got it down packed.
Now, was this U.S. money?
U.S. money, bro. U.S. money.
Wow.
So he went to Chicago because he heard, you know, the New York operation was getting sniffed around. You know, the feds were coming around, whatever, the Treasury Department. And he went to Chicago, started banging with the Serbian mob there, because the Serbian mob is the Polish and the Serbian mob is very, very strong out there. So it's just crazy. Like, he went out there and started banging money out there. Well, the feds followed him out there, got close to it. He just traveled over the border. You know, he went into Milwaukee. From Milwaukee, just went into Canada, because I think Winnipeg is right there. Took a flight to fucking Toronto to Romania. There's no extradition. Then he went back into Serbia because, you know, of course, NATO gets involved. It becomes, you know, FBI becomes like a headquarters in Romania, Bucharest, and Timisoara. So this guy went back to Serbia because Serbia has no extradition with the United States whatsoever. So you could be the biggest gangster you want, hence we go back to Bosko. You can't touch this motherfucker.
Is it still like that today?
Oh, it's still like that today. I swear to you, it's still like that today.
Awesome.
There's no extradition. Dude, all you need to do is go to a cemetery, pick out a fucking tombstone, and pay the guy off in a small village. Hey, I want to take this guy's ID over. Yeah, take your thumbprint, your photo, give the guy whatever, 1,000, 2,000 euros, and you got a new identification. You're in the system. You're done. Look at Bosko. Bosko left because he knew that the feds were coming for him. Okay, for the John Gotti tampering case. Okay, and I got to set the record straight on this. Sammy the Bull did not step up to Bosko on this. Okay, Bosko was friends with one of the jurors. The juror stepped to him and said, "Can you get me a deal? I need some money." Right. And then he went to Gravano and said, you know, go speak to John. And they gave him $60,000. He gave it to the guy. The guy who did end up, you know, in that hung jury up, he ended up doing 3 years. Okay? Right. Bosko knew he was going to get pinched. The last time I saw Bosko was like that time that we did that when he introduced me to Radovan. Then after that, he flew the coop. He went to Serbia to get him. And he was supposed to go to Cuba, and they kidnapped him in Miami. They diverted the plane knowing that Bosko was on the flight itinerary, and they kidnapped him. That's the only way they can get him.
This is the FBI.
By that time, right, and by that time, I mean, Bosko had some secret deal with the CIA, I'm not going to lie. Just like Cavalla, because they were best friends.
Right.
It is what it is, but he had inside information, so that had to be the CIA tipping him off. But he got kidnapped, and then they held him in Manhattan. They extradited him. They held him in Manhattan for like, I think it was 2 years. And then finally, it was just like, they let him go because Gravano's testimony wasn't going to amount to shit. You know, let me tell you, our guys were heavy hitters. Our guys were shooters. Our guys were involved in the craziest heists, you know, just you know, Punch's crew and the Pink Panthers. And they're still active now in Europe, the Pink Panthers. They caught some of the guys. They're still the biggest notorious jewel thieves. They want to glorify things a different way. So this guy Pavlik, fucking Punch, he did more shit in the early 90s than anybody. Okay, he makes the Lufthansa heist, like I said, look like a gumball machine. So I'm going to ruffle feathers with this. I already know it. But you know what? It is what it is. I don't need to brag. Those who know me know the things I've done and know that, you know, I was known in the Serbian community more than I was in the Italian community. I mean, there was some of us like I said, Bosko, you know, Punch, you know, those were the founders of the Fiacs. They were the founders, but they didn't like that name because it was Yugoslavia. And all these guys are like Serbian, like hardcore to the bones. Pavlik's got a huge double-headed eagle on his fucking shoulder tattooed. So I don't think he wants to go be recognized as a Yugoslavian. Why would you have a Serbian eagle on your shoulder? You know what I mean? Like, I have a Serbian eagle on my arm. I don't want to be recognized as Yugoslavian. I mean, fuck that. I'm Serbian. It is what it is. Serbian, Romanian. I'm proud of it. We'll always be proud of it. I'm proud of what my people have accomplished. I don't give a fuck that they bombed us for 78 days. I'm proud. That everybody look out for the Mood Lounge show. I'm going to try to drop it in the next 4 to 5 months. I'm just getting the programs ready, the cams, the mics, and it's going to just be just a shit and giggle show. It's not going to be me talking about the mob. It's just going to be me talking topics.
Life.
I'm going to pick one topic and I'm going to just go off on it.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, I'm here for my son, and I'm trying to just do better. And my son is never, ever going to tip that finger in that pond. You know what I mean?
Right. All right, my man.
Great talking to you, Mike.
Talk to you soon,
All right,
buddy.
bye-bye.
Bye.